It's bullet journal time again. I'm Viv. Welcome to Art with Viv, and let's just jump right into it. Now, my October theme, I always like to do something a little spooky. I don't know why, but I feel frisky in October. I feel like I want to do a big spread, so I've done a 2-page spread for my October cover page. And my theme is going to be black cats, bats, and spider webs. I went ahead and got a nice palette. It's the same palette I used for my last year's October bullet journal cover spread where I did a raven standing on a skull. So that was just yellow, purples, greens, reds, and oranges. They just remind me of Halloween and the spooky season. I know not everyone celebrates the spooky season, but I do love the artwork of it. I mean, my favorite part is giving out candy. Now, I don't care about all the dressing up and all the decorating the house, but I do love to make spooky art. So I've got my kitten. It's a little black kitten, and he's silhouetted with the moon, and then I thought I'd do a nice purple sky. That's a good complementary color for my purple. I am using gouache. You see I got my little meat tray over there that I like to use as a palette. Well, I have several of them. I have different ones with different colors in it, but this one I have for my Halloween palette of my purples and my greens and yellows and oranges. So I want it to be a little bit darker at the top. Now, the one thing about this bullet journal, I cannot do watercolor in it, but it does fine with gouache. You can see it is wrinkling a little bit, but I have it taped down, so it's going to be fine. When it dries, it'll be straight. So I'm getting that darker color purple toward the top, and then as I come down toward the line of the land line, the horizon line, then I am getting it a little bit lighter, and I'm adding in some bright pink into that purple. And then once I get all that, I feel like that top part needs to be just a little bit darker. So I mixed some purples and some darker blues together and just went back at it. And then I got a little sloppy with it. I painted over my beautiful yellow moon there and got some stuff on it, but I'll just fix it later. That is also the wonderful thing about gouache is you can just fix it. You can paint light over dark. You can mix white in with the paint. You can blend it so nicely while it's wet. So I'm not going to worry about it. I just got some brush marks on there, and later on I'll just come back and clean that up with some yellow. And just to make sure that I preserve that roundness of the moon, and some of that purple got mixed in with it. Later on, I might come back in there and paint over that and make it a more pure, paler yellow. But we'll see. I'm just getting my shape back in there for right now because I lost my beautiful circle shape. Now, what I did was I took my pencil and I just wrote my letters for October in. And I decided I would go ahead and still use my gouache paint for those. So what I'm doing is I'm just going at the top of the letters with a really pale lemon yellow. And that's just some yellow mixed with some white gouache. And then near the bottom, I'm trying to graduate it down to like a deep orange. So that's my idea. I don't know if it's working as well. And I'm using my smallest, tiniest brush to do that. And those are just golden maple brushes. I love golden maple brushes for gouache. Now they are for watercolor, acrylic, I think maybe something else. But they're perfect for me for gouache. So let's just get this a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, made a mistake. I had to just dab that up with a paper towel, and then I'll let that dry. Once that dries, I'll come back and paint that. But right now, if I try to paint over that, it's going to bleed, and I'm not looking for any bleeds on my stuff. The bleeding is not good for this. I want my letters to be crisp and not be blurry. So I'll just come back to that whenever it dries some. And that's all I'm doing to the letters. I'm painting them first with that nice lemon yellow. And then I am just doing a little bit of a deeper orange toward the bottom. And then where the yellow and orange meet, I blend them with the tip of my brush just to give it sort of that almost an ombre effect. Not quite, because I'm only using two colors really. I could put a red down at the bottom, but the value of my red is too close to the value of that purple background, so it would sort of disappear in there, and I want you to be able to read my October. So that's my thinking on that. That's my reason for doing it this way. And I know I don't have the best handwriting, and then trying to paint into my handwriting is probably not the best, but it worked as far as I'm concerned. It's fine. I tried to do a really funky font, kind of a spooky font to go with the spookiness of October and Halloween. And that is one of my favorite things to do during Halloween, is watch spooky movies and read. I always have to read Edgar Allan Poe. I've read those stories so many times, but they are some of my favorites. So I really have sort of traditions in October and what I like to do for this month. But yeah, my favorite thing is really to go back and read some of those classic scary tales, and Edgar Allan Poe is my favorite. And he has a story called The Black Cat, which is really, was it The Black Cat? Yeah, or was it The Telltale Heart that had a black cat in it? No, it was The Black Cat. Yeah. Yes, well, there was he had two different stories. He had one, The Telltale Heart, and then he did have the one with the black cat, where the cat was walled up with his dead wife. But anyway, it was really, he's a really good writer. So now I have gone ahead and I want my cat to be black, but if I just paint him solid black, he's not going to have any form or shape. So what I did, inside of his ears, I went and mixed some of my rose with a little bit of brown to get that pinky, fleshy brown color. Then where the darkest shadows are, I went ahead and applied black straight from the tube, which I don't normally do. But for this one, I mean, it's more like an illustration. I'm not trying to do fine art here. I just want to make my cat look black. And then I took a blue, more of a cooler blue, and I blended in some of the black and some white with that blue to make it kind of a bluey gray. And those are going to be my highlight colors. That's what I decided on, that I'm going to use that for my highlights, or at least to block out where I want my highlights to be. So that's really all I'm doing right now. I am just blocking out my colors where I want my darks and my lights to be. Once I get that done, I'm coming back in with some purple, and that's going to act as a different value. It's more of a mid-tone value between that blue and that black. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of pink in there just for a pop. And the other reason I do that, other than just to have more values represented by different colors, is to sort of bring that background color into my cat so that they are, unified and they look like they belong together. Now I'm adding some really pale gray to some of the really, really light areas. And that gray has a smidgen of that blue in it. And I'm just doing sort of a scumbly type of textury brush stroke where I'm just sort of scraping along the paper with the tip of my brush just to give it texture. And then I am trying to use my different colors as value as well, because it doesn't matter what color you paint something, as long as you get the values correct and that lends itself to the form of whatever you're painting, then it's going to look fine no matter what colors you use. I could paint this cat orange, and as long as I did the correct values, the lights and the darks and the shadows, he would look perfectly fine. So I'm not even scared. I'm just going into his fur with these blues and these purples and pinks and grays and black, and I'm just going crazy with it. I'm not scared. It's nothing to get your panties in a wad about. That is one thing about art. It is meant to be relaxing and fun and just something that you can just experiment with. Any little wild idea you get, then you can try it out. It's only a piece of paper and some paint. You can do it over if you need to. You'll find out what works and what doesn't work. So I'm always encouraging you, if you get an idea, just try it out. Try it out. So now you can see I'm sort of blending all those colors on top of the black. I'm letting some of that black shine through because remember, I want the cat to be black. Now his chest and chin are a little bit brighter. He's getting a lot of light there, so that's why it's so light across his chest and underneath his chin as he looks up at the sky. And then the light is hitting across his face, right across the top brow. So those are where I'm leaving the colors lighter. And then just to define his legs and his back, and just to get to separate his parts, his different anatomy from each other, I'm going in with some lighter colors just around the edges, and I'm doing just little fringe strokes. Then I'm coming and bringing in some of that purple and pink down into those areas. I'm also adding a little bit of black in there, a little bit of gray, and I'm just trying to mimic the lightness or darkness while not worrying at all about the colors that I use. I'm just trying to make sure that those colors are the correct value. I don't care what color it is. And I'm trying to, just accent where the light would be glowing, where the light would be coming from behind the cat. So all of his fur down his back is going to be lighter. His tail fur, some of that is going to be lighter. It's going to have a little reflected light on it. And so I'm thinking about all these things as I paint my little cat. So once I get my kitten exactly like I want him, and yes, he is a colorful black kitten, but I'm loving him, I'm going to go ahead and paint the ground around him up to the horizon line. And all I did was I've got a nice deep green. I mixed a little tiny bit of black into it, and then a little bit of a medium tone green so that it's not too dark. But I want it to be dark because, of course, at night the grass looks darker. It's not that bright green that you see during the day, that nice yellow green. And I'm trying to paint around some of my mushrooms and things like that, but I'm not getting too, frou-frou about it. I'm just painting over it in some spots because I know I can come back and paint over with my gouache. So I'm getting all of that background, all of the grass painted in with that nice deep sort of blue, green, gray color. And I'll let that dry. And while that's drying, I am going ahead with the nice red, and I'm just going to do the caps of my mushrooms with that red. To start with, this is just my base color. And you can even add a little bit of orange in with that red if you would like, especially where you want the color to be a little bit lighter. You can add a little bit of orange. And I'll do that later, but that's just my base. And I know it looks really messy. Every painting goes through an ugly duckling stage, and just have faith in the process and keep painting. You've got this. You can do it. Don't get stressed. My favorite saying is don't get your panties in a wad. It's just not even worth it. It's uncomfortable and there's no point to it. It's just paint and paper. You can paint right over it, or you can get some new paper and glue on top of this and paint on the new paper. It's not the end of the world. So don't sweat it. It's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be, for me, experimental. I'm always saying, well, wonder what's going to happen if I do this, or if I add that, or if I mix these two colors together, or if I hold my brush a certain way. I'm always trying different things when I'm painting, just to see what works, what doesn't work, what effects I can get, what colors I can mix. So now I've just gotten some of my Naples yellow and a little bit of white, and I'm just doing the stems and the gills of my red mushrooms. I'm liking my red mushrooms, but now that I'm looking at it and doing my voiceover, I'm thinking I should have put at least 1 or 2 red mushrooms behind the cat on the other side where all the blue are coming off the page, and maybe a red mushroom on the other page, like all the way to the right hand side. But I didn't do that. It's gonna be fine though, and that would have balanced it a little bit better, but I'm not gonna worry about that. So now I'm taking that blue that I used on the cat, the lighter color blue, and I've done the caps of the mushrooms that are a little taller and spindlier, and that's going to be my base coat for them. Then I'm mixing up a little bit of brown with a little bit of the Naples yellow, and that's going to be my shadows and my gills, those little tiny fine lines for the gills under my mushrooms. And the little skirt of the mushroom, I've made sure that I put a nice little shadow under there so it separates the skirt from the stem. And then I am adding a little bit more red, a darker red to the back sides of some of the mushrooms. And then I'm mixing a little bit of orange with the base color red to get a lighter sort of orangish red for the highlights. You can do it however you want to. I'm doing it very subtly. I'm not doing a lot of dramatic lighting on these mushrooms. They are, after all, sort of in the shadow of the cat, so they're not going to be way bright. They're not going to have huge highlights on them. But, you know, it's up to you. You can put huge highlights on them if you want to. It's totally up to you. It's your painting. I'm just not doing it that way. Then I got some white gouache, and I'm just putting the little dots, and that seems to bring the mushrooms to life. I'm just doing some concentric circles. And yeah, so it is really, really bringing those mushrooms to life. I'm also going ahead and just adding in some darker blue for the shadows on my spindlier mushrooms, and just sort of blending that in with a little bit of the paler blue. I put them side by side and then just use the tip of my brush to blend the two together, the pale blue and the darker blue, and that just gives it some nice shadows. I've also taken some brown and gone down the stems of the mushrooms to give the stems a little bit of shadow. There's not a whole lot to that. And then I'm just going with a really, really pale blue with the white mixed too in it for the highlights. That's all I'm going to do for these mushrooms for now, and work on the other ones. Just giving those some shadows, and then blending with the tip of the brush, just blending the darker with a little bit of paler blue mix together. That's all there is to it. Now I'm just taking some black paint and I'm just doing bat shapes, like the bats are flying across the sky up to the October. And what I'm also going to do is just add a little bit of white to some of that black to make a nice gray, and so that it makes some of the bats look like they're farther away. So they're going to be black with some different shades of gray, so that all the bats are not going to be black. And that's just, a way to try to make some of them look farther apart. Or farther away. Farther away. What am I saying? Once I get all my little bats in, then I'm going to do a lighter color green. My background green has dried, and I'm just going to add grass. And all I am doing with my light, it's kind of a yellowy green with a little bit of white in it. I'm just making brush marks to look like grass. I'm just doing all kinds of just tiny brush marks in all different directions, because that's how grass grows, all crazy. And just putting that against that background just to give it some depth and a little bit of dimension. And because that dark sort of greenish background is not looking too spicy, so we just gonna add a little spice with a little bit of the brighter, more yellowier green. And in some areas I'm going really bright with it, where the moonlight is just bouncing off of it. Yeah, so that's all we're doing. And just to get it that kind of brightness, I'm just adding extra yellow and white to the green. So yeah, that looks much better. Now that looks like a grassy field. So next I'm just going to write in my poem or my quote. If you're looking for a way to level up your creative journey and get some bonus content related to my YouTube videos, then you might consider joining my Patreon family. I have 4 unique membership levels. As a peaker for $3 a month, you get fun coloring pages, monthly bullet journal layouts, and artwork sheets. If you want more, you can go to the Dabblers. You get all that, plus instant access to the Sweet Art Squad archive of 93 mini tutorials and a monthly bonus tutorial. If you want even more creators, you get everything the Peakers and Dabblers do, along with a live monthly tutorial where we paint together, and bundlers actually get physical goodies sent straight to their door like prints, stickers, bookmarks, and more. So what are you waiting for? I'm going to link my Patreon below. In October, any wonderful, unexpected thing might be possible. I just love that quote. Then I got out my Posca pen, white, and I'm just going to do a spider web here to kind of fill up the space. Like I said, I should have probably brought the mushrooms over, but since I didn't, we're going to go ahead with a spider web and put that in there, and we're going to connect it to the text box or to the quote box. And then I'm just taking another Posca pen and I am outlining the quote box. And then I'll take black and outline around the edges. I also did another spider web up in the left-hand top corner. As you see, I didn't show that to you because I mean, you know how to do a spider web. It's boring. I mean, there's nothing to it. You just do some lines and then connect them all. And then I am going to outline this with black, make a little frame around it, and then frame the outside edges of my cover layout. And then I colored in some of the little, I made sort of it's just a handmade sort of design in each corner, and then in each of the round spaces in the corner. What I did, and the reason I'm telling you this now is because I forgot to film it. What I did was I did tiny spider webs in each of the circles, and you'll see it when it's finished. So I had to turn it upside down so I could do better with that. And I am using my ruler for this. You know, I don't normally use rulers a lot, but I'm using my ruler for this one because I want it to be fairly straight. And getting in those little corners. I love my Posca pens. So then I just colored in the design with black. I made little designs in the corners, just to sort of frame it out. I was just trying to do a little frame. If you're interested in getting my layouts for my October spread, then by all means, please consider joining my Patreon. And I have a big shout out to my patrons. Thank you for watching and happy painting. Y'all, I will see you soon. Don't get your panties in a wad.